Should be working. It says, oh, it said it was going live, but it never actually went live. But now it's live, so we're
Now
live
it's
now.
live.
Yeah.
So we're live. You guys missed all of it. We're
Yep.
almost done.
We're done. All right. Well, see you guys later. It's too bad you missed it. No, that's weird. Apparently, if you so on the browser on YouTube, you have to tell it that you're live. So you tell OBS that you're live, and you have to go into the browser, tell it it's live. If you minimize the tab before it says it's live, it just loops going live, going live, going live.
Oh, really?
I
Oh,
did not
man.
know
Okay.
that, but apparently that's because this is the second time it's done that to me, and I didn't realize that's the issue. You're not allowed to close the tab before it's done, or not allowed to minimize the tab before it's done. Well, anyways,
All right.
here we are. Thanks for noticing that, Kyle.
Yeah,
That
well,
was
we're done. We're done. We finished. You guys missed it. So, it was really weird having this without anybody else, but,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Really great topics though today. Really great topics.
it
So
was awesome.
yeah, we
Yeah.
covered them real quick in less than 4 minutes. Um, all right. Well, anyways, welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. And we're happy to have you. And thanks, Kyle, for being here in place of Joe. Joe's not with us this week because he is with his kids, but we're happy to have Kyle. Kyle's very wise. He's helped me a lot throughout his life and my own, which is the entire time I've known him was my whole life. So it should be,
Mm.
he should be pretty good. I mean, he didn't put me in the wrong direction, and I don't think he will do that to you either. Um, so yeah. If you could just say, hey, Kyle, you could say, hey, bro, man. Just like Astral did. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. But yeah, how are you all doing tonight? How you all doing? It's been a week. How has your week been since the last Don't Worry Wednesday? Have you enjoyed yourself? Did you get in any trouble? Did you accidentally make someone mad? Did you throw a goat? Tell me about it. Um, but yeah, how you doing, Kyle?
That, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah,
People
throwing
throwing
goat.
goats all over the place.
Yeah, well, it's a dangerous world out there,
It
especially if you're a
is.
goat.
It is. Especially, I'm gonna wear a helmet now. I have to when
Oh
I go
gosh,
outside because there's so many goats.
a helmet and knee
No,
pads.
yeah, knee pads. Yeah, definitely need a knee pad. No, I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Great.
I'm happy to be here. I'm just, you guys will get Joe next week. He's gonna be back, so look forward to that. In the meantime, we'll try our best over here.
Yeah,
Um,
should be all right.
yeah.
Should do well. I'm gonna switch my keyboard out to the one that doesn't make sound when I type, and here we go. So, yeah, doing good. Although, you're getting baby goats. Oh no. Oh no. Well, if you raise them for throwing, um, that's it. I'm raising goats, so that's for the sport of goat throwing. um, yeah, doing pretty good. Decided to pop in since I'm off work today. That's awesome, Gray. I think you know what? We have a topic from you. Um, would you mind if we covered it? It's nice to see you here, and we don't get to see you that often, and so I'm if it's all right. Well, it's not really a topic. I suppose. You know what? Actually, I remember I just read this one. I suppose I can read this any day, and probably should read it while Joe's here because it's a thank you. So, and the thank you goes to him. So I should just hold off on that one. Um, but yeah.
Sorry, I'm not good enough to listen to that one.
Yeah, that's about it. No, I'm just kidding. You're great. You're great. But it does reference Joe in the thank you, so
Yeah.
I figured it's probably good if he's here. So anyhow, yeah. Well, I should start the show. Hey, welcome to Don't Worry Wednesday. This is the show where we talk about the issues and problems going on in your guys' life. Life isn't always clear cut and easy, and sometimes we get held up with our issues, and either we need help or some encouragement or just some other people's opinions on the matter. Sometimes, we know the answers, but we still need that second push. And then sometimes we're just completely lost, and we're looking for a friend to walk alongside with us down that road. And we aren't professional psychologists or psychiatrists or anything like that, and we certainly urge you to get see some therapists if that's necessary for you. But in the meantime, we can attempt to give you your weekly dose of positive oriented views. Your weekly dose of some problem solving and just urge you on in life and help you move forward the best way that we can help. We lived lives of our own, and we can share our own personal experiences, and we encourage you to do the exact same thing in the chat. If you could put your own thoughts and responses to people's topics in the chat, that would be super helpful. It helps us, and it also helps the people you are aiming to help. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. You guys are all awesome, and we are so happy to be here. It's my favorite day of the week, my favorite part of the week, to be able to be here and just be with you guys and offer up something good to the world. So yeah, that's your favorite part of Don't Worry. What's your favorite part of Don't Worry Wednesday, Astral? And we have a topic from Astra submitted yesterday. We titled it "Anger and Guilt." Was that you, Astral? Because it says it's from Astra, not Astral, and yeah, that's you. Okay, cool. Just wanted to confirm. Well,
real quick.
Yeah.
Is anybody? I'm hearing you're a little bit crackly there, Ryan. Does everybody else hear that, or is that just on my end?
No, that's probably me. Let me see if I can fix that real quick. Yep, I also have a topic from Yuhatsu. We've got quite a few topics now, which is great. I'm going to try to fix my sound settings.
No, Ash says it's just me. It might just be me. So.
Oh, doesn't sound correctly?
It's just me. I'll just deal with it. No problem.
Well, good. Oh, you know what? That's because OBS is taking from my audio directly, and yours is going through Discord. And Discord is reading through Windows, which is meaning that the bit rates are off, which I'll try to fix for you, Kyle.
It's just real clippy for some reason.
I'll try to fix it for you.
It's not a big deal.
No, okay.
Don't worry about it.
It's still easy to understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just want to make sure it wasn't annoying for everybody else.
All right. Well, okay. Seems fine enough.
Cool.
Hear a little crackling from everyone. Okay. I hear crackly, but Ryan is clear. Okay. Well, hopefully it's not too bad. And you know what? If it gets annoying to anybody, I'll see what I can do to fix it. So, anyways, I'm gonna start from the dates here, because we've got actually a lot of topics, and so I'm gonna filter this newest to oldest, or oldest to newest rather, and then start from there. So here's one from Hatsu. You had an interesting topic here. You have a couple of topics, and if this isn't the one you want us to cover, let us know which one. We've got two here, actually. Let me double check. Yeah, Hatsu, we got two here. One says, why do we get choices? And the other one is, how do we keep people happy? Obviously, you know what? I think we did how do we keep people happy last week. No, it was someone else submitted a very similar topic. No, you weren't here last week, but we covered that one. I think that's what happened. But how about Hatsu? We do, why do we get choices? Seems like a really interesting question. It's a rather philosophical. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ash. Sure. Okay, cool. Thank you. You know what? I mean, I'll throw the topic on the screen just out of what's the word? Tradition. You guys probably don't need to see it, but here it is. This topic's from Hatsu, and it's titled, "Why do we get choices?" And it reads as follows: "Why do we get choices?" From Hatsu. That's it. That's as much as there is to it. Why do we get choices? You know, this is a really weird question because it's a philosophical question. It's sort of a religious question, if you will. It can be many things. I don't know how far this topic will go, and I think this question bears a whole lecture, if you will, that I don't want to give. It could take like 2 hours, because I mean, there's a lot of prerequisites to go over to get to the answer and bottom of this question. Hatsu, I know that you submitted this topic when we were at a time when we didn't have very many topics and you were trying to fill in, and so I really appreciate that. And I sort of get that this isn't necessarily something you're struggling with, or maybe it is. If it is, let me know. I think that's great. But I'm guessing it's not something that's troubling you or being a problem in your life. But I think it's still a question worth digging into and answering, because out of this question we might find some really good goods to offer up into the world with our lives. And so, yeah, why not? Why not cover it the best we can? um, all right. I like making topics for y'all. Yeah, thank you, Hatsu. You've been super awesome at making topics for us, because it's been helpful, especially on days where it's a little dry and we don't have very many. And you show up a lot, so I mean, we can always do yours, and we can count on you. So thank you so much, Hatsu. You're amazing. All right. Well, with all that said, Kyle, would you like to open this topic up?
Well,
Break
I'm
open
thinking
the
what I'll do.
box.
I mean, it was such a short question. I'm going to give a short answer.
All right, go for it.
All right. Love.
Oh, that's the right answer. I'll agree with
All
that.
right. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ryan. What you got?
All right. Mine's a little bit different. Mine's a four-letter word. It starts with L and ends with, oh crap, that's the same. No, no, I like that. Of course, I think that's the right answer. I really like that
yeah,
answer.
I guess
But
we
go
can
into more
we
detail if
can
you
go
can.
in. We can go into why. I don't know. It's a really interesting question. I mean, for one thing, I mean, just how boring would thing. I mean, if we didn't have choices, we would be like the ants, right? Just busy doing stuff all the time, but only it's not really accomplishing anything except for the continuation of what's going on already. That makes sense. It's like, like there's nothing new with ants. They're just always rebuilding a house every time it gets messed up, and that's just their job. Rebuild a house, fill it with food. Build a house, fill it with food. And it's a big accomplishment for their size, but they're not progressing as a species because of it.
Yeah.
you know. So I mean, there's that. I mean, so I mean, part of why we have choices is that so that we can remove ourselves from the sort of uh, sort of like beast mentality where everything we do is just for our own good and there's not any more thought into it. We just do things for ourselves. So I think choices allow us to have the ability to love others, really, or the ability to receive love, because I mean, the reality is most creatures, I'm not going to say all creatures because there's exceptions, but most creatures, everything they do is designed completely around the continuation of their species and nothing else. And they don't even care necessarily about the um, other members of their own species. It's just sort of this weird, like, they don't even care necessarily about that. It's just what they're doing. Um, so I think that by having choices, it allows us the capacity to love each other and to progress in multiple facets in our lives, mentally, spiritually, um, physically, kind of however we choose, with that choice. But we have the opportunity to progress. We're not stuck in this is. I mean, like you look at a colony of ants and they're pretty much all the same. All well within their respective jobs, right? There's not very much variance between all the ants who are out there collecting food. They're pretty much all the same ant, just copied 100,000 times, because they don't really have choices at the same level we do. I mean, they might have some choices, but it's not the same kind. So, yeah.
Hmm. All right. And how does that progress into love?
Well, I think it's because of love that we have the choices,
Hmm.
but it's also through those choices that we're able to understand and know what that love is and how to give and receive it, right? So this is okay. So let's see. I don't know how far we want to get into this. I mean, so if we look at from like a theological point of view, often the question is asked in a different way, or a different questions asked, which has the same sort of answer. And that's why is there evil in the world? Why do bad things happen to good people? And it's the same sort of thing, right? It's this love, because you've got if if a world was created where there was only allowed to be good happening, it could only ever be good, then all of a sudden what choices do you have? You don't have a choice. Everything you do has to be the perfect only one good answer, right? You don't have the ability to choose to do the good thing. You don't have the ability to choose to do the bad thing. You just are always doing the good thing. So the good thing now has no value, right? Because you no longer get to do something nice for somebody else. You're just forced to. I mean, that's like a slave, right? And so now that's not the same thing. Like trees, they grow and they bear fruit, and that's good, right? And it's good because, I mean, it's helpful, right? But they didn't choose to do that. So it's not as good as somebody maybe going out, producing food, collecting it, and then giving it to somebody who needs it, right? That's an active choice. They didn't have to do that. So that one, because they chose and they basically gave of themselves on purpose, it has more value. And to do this is a sign of love. And I think that's kind of ultimately the reason why we have choices. And unfortunately, sometimes people make bad choices, and that's the same thing. Like, that's the problem of evil, right? But it's for the same reason. If we didn't have evil, then if that wasn't a possibility, then the good things that people do for each other wouldn't have no value, because there just wouldn't be a possibility of doing anything else. So I think that's why we have choices. Now, sometimes we have choices and they're kind of silly. It's like, why do I have to choose which cereal I'll have in the morning? Like, just give it to me.
Yeah,
I
both
don't
are good.
care. Like, it's annoying to have to figure that out that early in the morning. Like, if I'm not woken up already yet, or
What's
I
the
don't
most
know.
annoying part of your
I
day?
mean,
I don't know. When I'm half
I
asleep trying to choose cereal.
yeah, half asleep trying to make my coffee. I don't know which kind I want. No, I don't know. I don't really have
I'm
that
ready to
problem.
give
But
up at
I
that
know
point.
some people have a hard time when they wake up at first, and the morning's rough until they have their coffee. But so I could see, sometimes, and some choices are annoying, and sometimes you have really big choices, and they both seem good, and that can be frustrating. Or maybe every choice seems bad, and that can be frustrating. But I think ultimately it's because we have a love and respect for each other, that we have these choices. I mean, there are countries where you have far fewer choices than other countries because of the level of control, or slavery still exists in the world today. There's so many. We don't really talk about this so much, but I mean, there's still a lot of slaves today, and they don't really have choices. And the only reason that is because they're people who hold them captive. They don't love them, so they take away all their choices.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
only get to serve.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So your choices, in some ways, choices is why you're free. Why you're not a slave, because you have choices. So, yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's kind of a deep. I mean, they're like all of these things I'm talking about. We could have an hour-long discussion on any one of them.
Yeah.
It's So I guess that's my sort of like overview. I don't know how long we want to
Okay. Well, yeah. I
do
mean,
this, but yeah.
that's fine. That's great. I think so. Basically, what you're saying is, we have choices, at least from a theological and or philosophical point of view, because we are designed in such a fashion that we were allowed to love, and because love existed, we had to have free choices in order to make love manifest. Because without,
Mhm.
if so, in a world where we humans were designed without the ability to love, it wouldn't matter if we had free choice, because love wouldn't exist. Which is a weird
Yeah.
statement, but it's that's the way you see it, and I can definitely agree with that. It gives, of course, that requires that you think that we were created with a meaning, created with a
Well,
purpose.
it's not only that, but I mean, like, let's just take the definition of love itself. Like,
Sure.
love is the freely choosing the free will choice for good of the other person,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, that's your most basic, I guess, overarching definition of love.
Sure. Yeah.
When you love somebody, you've made a free choice for their betterment,
Mm-hmm.
for their good, right?
Right.
And so, but if you can't make a choice, if there's no choice possible, then there is no love. Like, it just doesn't exist.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you will it. To will is to have a choice, right? So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you desire it. But even if you don't desire it, you still choose it. It's still love. So that's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
You say, I don't necessarily think that we were created with a specific purpose, but I do agree that if we did not have choices, then love could not manifest properly. Yeah, I agree with that. And that's, in a roundabout way, part of why I think that the answer of love does make sense in this context, just because it's like love is proven through choice, and without love, what is there for what reason do we have choice? Because otherwise you're left with good and bad for what reason? You're left with good options and bad options for what reason? To what end is there? To what end is anything? And to ask that question, like, to what end is anything? What's the meaning of making a single choice in your life if there's no meaning to anything? And well, then you just find yourself down a rabbit hole where nothing means anything, and then why even ask the question, why make choices? Why do we have choices? Well, if nothing has any meaning, then why do we have choices can't be answered, because you're asking a question that, well, no, not exactly. You're intuiting a question that has meaning. So for example, you could say, please tell me about gravity, and we can get so far, right? We can tell you about gravity. We can tell you that it exists, and we can give you its functions, and we can give you its mathematical equations to help guide rockets and so on, right? But if someone asks, but why does gravity exist? Why does it have to be there? We can't answer that. We can't, because that's asking a question about meaning. And scientifically speaking, where we cross off all meanings, we just only answer, why is it doing that? We don't ever ask, why is it there in the first place, and why is it doing that in a meaningful way, not a scientific way. You can't answer why we have gravity. You can't answer why we have water. It just exists. What's the meaning of water? It's like, I don't know how to answer that without some sort of theology and or philosophy that dives into meaning. And so to ask, like, why do we have choices, sort of intuits meaning. It requires you to, like, sort of dive into that. It doesn't, though. You don't necessarily have to. You could say, why do we have choices? Well, because the brain in the human mind has a complex set of, we're still trying to figure it out, basically. We're still trying to figure out the science. We don't know. All we know is it's complex and we don't understand it, but there's probably a physical reality, a physical manifestation going on in our brains that allows us, to some degree, to recognize that there are choices, then recognize we have the ability to pick between them, and then recognize which of those might be, what the pros and cons of each of them, and then also recognize that our emotions pull us towards certain things against our will, and then finally the choice, and that we can make an action on them. And a lot of that we don't understand scientifically. We just don't. We're just not even close. Which is weird. You'd think we'd have that. We'd think we'd have humans figured out. I mean, we've been humans for a long time, but we just don't understand it yet. So that's why it's like, this is more of a question of meaning rather than a question of science, because I can't answer the science. That's not within my power or like anybody on Earth yet that I know of. They're still trying to figure it out. But what we do have is some possible answers for meaning. And so Astro, that's the kind of like why I end up there, or why both Kyle and I end up there. Is like, it's like, even if you don't think that there's a specific reason we were created, it still bears the question of like, well, then why? What is the reason? What's the meaning behind it all? Even if there isn't necessarily a specific reason we were created for, like, we weren't created to create like bulbs. We did it anyways, right? And it provides a great good, right? So I understand where you're coming from, and I can agree that you can still find an answer. And you might still find your answer ultimately on, well, to do the good in the world. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. But regardless, I think it still requires us to kind of dive down that line of thinking, just because where else do you go? Um, because we certainly don't have the scientific answers for that kind of question. And the science doesn't answer all of the questions anyways. It only answers a set of how physical reaction and chemical reactions happen in our brain, but doesn't answer why like that exists in the first place, or what the meaning is behind doing that. So I don't know. It's a complicated question, and I'm happy that we get to at least run our course at it. But anyways, that's more towards Astral and your comment, and I totally respect your point. And yeah, light bulbs are very useful and agreed, and so are computers, like we're using right now. So even if computers aren't the meaning of life, I am happy that someone put their choices into the creation of them, and I think that they are a good, and that I do spawn from a sort of passion, which is a form of love. Passion can be a form of love. So um, if you love making computers, that's awesome, and thank you. you know so that's what I got. Anyways, yeah, we'll keep this one short. How about that? Hatsu, I hope that was at least sufficient. Obviously, like how said, there's so many different little tiny nuances within this conversation we could go, and we could go on for hours, and I don't think it's necessarily where we should go, though maybe there ought to be another stream where we talk more on philosophy and theology and those types of things, because I love those kind of topics. Because I don't know, I just love them. I think it's great. It's fun to run your mind over things and just like try to understand, and then realize you don't understand, and then still try to understand. It's great. I like it. But anyways, yeah, thank you so much, Hatsu. Thank you for the lovely topic, and yeah, I hope we did it justice. He said it was great. Thank you. I'm glad. And thank you, Kyle, for starting us off with that. Did you have anything more you wanted to add?
Well, just Astral says, I agree that there might be some reasons we exist, but I don't know if there's just one specific reason. To me, that implies there's
sure.
some sort of end goal to humanity, which is a bit uncomfortable. And I kind of agree with that in some ways. I mean, it's like, there's some people who, and this is more and more common today, to kind of like imagine that we're all just part of some huge simulation.
Like the Matrix. But
yeah, like quite. The Matrix.
Because even the Matrix had an outside of the Matrix, but regardless.
Yeah, something like that. And, I agree, like that would be a little bit uncomfortable. We're all just like a computer program, and they're just going to shut us off when they're done with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit strange, but yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely more to it than that. It can't be that simple. I don't think so anyway.
Mm-hmm. So it seems to me that as you go down roads, things do not appear simple, especially when you have something involving the human and the human course of life. It seems to me that it's incredibly complicated, and we're still figuring it out. Yeah. Which is great. That's why we're here on Don't Worry Wednesday, because we're trying to figure some of this out, and solve and problem solve. So thanks for being here. We love you guys. We appreciate it. So yeah, thanks so much once again, Hatsu. You're awesome, and we appreciate your topic. And we hope that some of that was at least useful for some reason for someone. Sorry about that. Shall we go on and hop into the next one? We have one from, let me just check who we have. Okay, yeah, we do have. Okay, Astral, you said you have no preference of whether you're here, and you submitted it just yesterday. So, if I'm gonna hold off on yours for just a moment here. I have got an anonymous one from May 24th. I think it'd be really great to cover that one. I can't believe we're covering it so late. It's titled "Finding Hobbies." Is this also from Yuhatsu? By any chance? I think it is from Yuhatsu. Finding hobbies. Hello. Oh, hey, Baka.
I mean, it was all at the same
It was all at the
time.
same time, and they're all really short and very straight to the point. So I think they are from Hatsu. I think they're meant for backlog. That's probably why we haven't covered them. Um, so that makes sense. I like this one instead, though. Wait, we actually did this one. I
Let's
think.
do. I think we had to like all the ones on the 24th. Probably just
Yeah, and we
come
answered
back.
this one last week. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep,
So then
that's
the
why they're there.
14th would be like the next.
Perfect. All right, perfect. Mialudo, I know that you wanted yours. Mialudo, I think you're still with us, yeah? You wanted yours answered last week, and you marked it urgent, and unfortunately didn't get to it in time. You did say that you sort of got it figured out and solved, which is great. So if you still want us to cover it, no need to do mine. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Then we'll just keep that on the table here, and let's see. Saule, we're gonna do yours. This is a great topic. You asked if this was an okay topic to do, since it's a little bit sensitive. I think that is a fantastic topic to do, and one that maybe even bleeds over into that last topic to some degree. So I think we should do it. It is titled "Everything Dies." Um, great title. And I'll go ahead and throw it up on the board here. And you can feel free to read along if you wish. Just stare at the video. If you don't want to read along, close your eyes and listen. Don't you dare drive, because I just told you to close your eyes. Don't drive with your eyes
Can I
closed.
read it?
Huh?
Can I read it?
You want to read it?
Yeah, I want to read it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Warning: this is a dark philosophical topic.
Is that all you wanted to read? Do you want to read the rest of it? Or you got...
Just a warning. Just that's all we needed, right?
Okay.
Yeah. No. Okay. After listening to August's topic and specifically Ryan P's response, it got me thinking. Death is necessary. Without death, life cannot go on. If nothing dies, then nothing can live. Everything will die. Plants need nutrients to put into the ground by other plants and animals dying. Animals need to eat plants and other animals, which requires the eating to die. Hunting is necessary for some creatures to live. That means that killing is necessary. I don't think that this includes murder. Murder is bad. Please don't do it. Even herbivores eating plants involves killing the plants that are consumed. I'm not sure what to do with these thoughts. Death is needed. I can accept that, but I don't know how I feel. Thank you. Soaking home.
All right. Thank you, Kyle, for that wonderful reading, and thank you, Saule / Soaking Pillow, for the topic. We appreciate you so much. Also appreciate you for being here so much for us and with us, and moderating the chat and doing just being awesome. Yeah, thank you for this topic. So this is a great topic. I mean, it's another philosophical one. It does, yeah, it leans itself towards philosophy. Obviously, there might be as well, to some degree, a scientific answer, but it's not very it's not satisfactory, the one that exists. It's not to what you're looking for. But anyhow, yeah, thank you so much for this topic, and I'm looking forward to doing it. You know, as we talked about death quite a few times on this channel, if anyone's suffering from a lost one, I'm sorry. I apologize that we might be doing a topic that's sensitive at this time. You know, also, as we've said before, one of the beautiful things about death is it helps, the ache in our heart helps to recognize the value of the human being lost. There's a real value to the human being, and when we lose them, or even, you know, maybe an animal or a tree that we like, you know, there's a painful experience when it comes to this kind of loss, and that pain helps us recognize that there is value in that thing, and that's why that pain exists. And so I understand, you said you don't know how you feel about the fact that everything kind of comes to an end and it dies. Um, and that's an understandable place to be, of just like, I don't know what to feel about that. But there is some good, because without it, we might never recognize or experience the sorrow that happens when it does happen, to someone we love, right? When they pass on, we experience a deep grieving sorrow, and that is one of the ways where we come to recognize the value of life, um, you know, and that it's worth protecting, worth worth fighting for, and worth trying to keep alive. And that in itself is interesting, because now you've got the idea of fighting to keep someone alive would not exist if there wasn't death in the first place, and war would not be so extreme or intense if there weren't loved ones lost. And that's an interesting thing too. Of course, no one would die in a war, but then it's like, well, then why are you having a war? It's like weird. Anyways, it's not the world we live in. Regardless, yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. I'm looking forward to see what Kyle's got, so I'm gonna give it over to him. So here you go, bro. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's certainly very interesting thing to think about and talk about, and it's one of those topics that, um, I mean, again, I you write a whole book on this if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So we're only gonna scratch the surface today, because I think, not having had the time to really, develop a full thought, I think this is going to be,
Oh yeah, for sure.
it'll still be good though. This is going to be great. So, I think, one of the things I just was popped into my mind when Ryan was talking just now is, just imagine if we lived forever, um, and there was just no risk of dying. How much would you get done? Like, would you ever accomplish anything? I don't think I would, because I just would procrastinate forever, because there's no point in doing it now. I still have forever left. And so I don't know.
Well, you do things out of
Kind of,
interest regardless, though,
yeah,
not
but
because you
the
have pending
big
doom.
important, yeah, things that, yeah, but again, there's no, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
think
get
it
it.
would be quite a bit different. It's hard to imagine what that would be like. It'd be kind of silly.
Well, one thing that's
Um,
interesting is, I'd have to just, along that same vein, just to add on to it, if no one ever died, eventually you just run out of resources because nothing's being returned.
well, right, and so that's another question, right? So why is the world exist in such a why does the universe exist in such a way that resources are limited, right? What if it was just that when new resources were needed, they just appeared out of nowhere? Like, that's just how
Mm,
physics works. You run out of, energy, and it's just energy is just popping into. Obviously, you're not eating food, because that requires killing things. Like, if there was no death, right? It's just like you have to get energy from somewhere. So I mean, what, the ether just supplies energy, um, as long as you need it. I don't know. It's sort of strange. Biology changes, and we don't need a gut anymore. So all of the bacteria that exists in our gut doesn't have a place to live now. So they didn't die, so they just never existed. I mean, how many things don't exist anymore because there's just not a purpose for them? It's or a place for them to live. Like, fungus necessarily is eating a substrate, whatever, like, like that grows on trees. It's killing the tree. That's what it's doing. If it wasn't doing that, then, what's the purpose of, like, does it still exist? It's a really strange. Yeah, mosquitoes, I don't know. I mean, they don't seem to kill anything. They'd probably be all right.
no, no, mosquitoes. No,
We might be
no.
able to, out of all the things, we might be able to keep those as much as we don't want them.
Yeah.
Um,
Nah, mosquitoes are the spawn of Satan, so we don't need them. It's the only animal God didn't create. Just kidding.
Yeah, yeah, I could do without the mosquitoes. We had a few attacking. Our daughter woke up this morning and she has like must be
Oh,
20 mosquito bites on her face.
ah, poor
It
girl.
really liked her last night. Yeah, but anyway, that's sort of sidebar. So it's a really interesting question. Like kind of buried within the question is, could the world exist in a different way, or the universe rather? And I don't know. It would just be so different. Um, I'm not sure that, to me, it almost seems as far, if physics don't change too much, if death didn't exist, then just life wouldn't exist either. Right? That would just have to be the way it is, I think. Just when you go back and think through how evolution works, you have to have some sort of reason to evolve, or a creature does generally. If if the environment isn't too harsh for it, if they're not having problems, and there's no good way for the selection process to proceed. I mean, or maybe everything just evolves so quickly. That's the other option too, right? If you can't die, then there's no such thing as a bad evolution, but then you'd have like one species immediately branch out 50 different ways, and it would be sort of like impossible to even categorize what's going on with them all. So, and I think it creates order, even though death is sort of like chaos. I think, in a way, because we don't like it. It causes all this emotional. It really is this chaotic thing when you take,
Well,
life
yeah.
kind of is order, but then death is sort of like like chaos. But in
Mhm.
some ways, the fact that we live creates chaos, and when we die, it actually creates order in a way too, because it allows us to learn and know like these are the things that are good and bad, and it allows things to progress in a logical fashion. Um, yeah,
Mhm.
that's interesting. Another reason is, outside of, so that's sort of like like from physics standpoint or biological standpoint, I think that seems like a pretty good reason. But, in the philosophical sort of world too, I think if death didn't exist, would there be meaning in any of it, right? That'd be an interesting question to answer. Would there be meaning in a life if death weren't an option? If not exist, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Because if you could just, what's the value, right? Because if there's no risk, there's no reward. And so if there's no life to risk, is the life worth the same? I don't know. That's interesting. So I don't know. This is these questions. You're not going to get good, helpful answers with this kind of question, I don't think. Um, as far but I mean, it's interesting to think about though. As far as being uncomfortable, I mean, if you're uncomfortable with death, I think we all are, and I think that's because in a perfect world, maybe that wouldn't have to exist. Because it generates sadness. A lot of times, or a sense of loss, like you've lost something when somebody dies, or if you die, you leaving other people behind. You generate there's that whole thing. So, I mean, most cultures, I think, throughout history have assumed that there's something beyond death, like our souls, or the souls of the trees, even, or in some cases, even rocks have some sort of spirit that persists. Um, and I think that's because there's a difference between maybe physical death and spiritual death, right? And so you can have maybe one without the other. And the interesting thing is, spiritual death doesn't have to have the same caveats as a physical death, because the spirit doesn't necessarily require energy to maintain itself, right? There's something else going on there that we don't understand, and we can't, because science only involves what we can physically see and test. So it's an interesting question, but it's not one that we can even invoke the sciences to answer. So for something like your soul or spirit or something like that, then you know, death might exist, it might not. I mean, and then if it does, what does that mean? In the case of uh, a, a soul that's not immortal, right? Let's say there was, a soul could just, what would happen? I don't know, if it cease to exist. I don't know, because it doesn't really exist in the physical realm. So it's sort of hard to think about what that would even mean. Um, Now, if a soul is immortal, can it still die? What does that look like? You know, um, if there's a Highlander, right? You chop off the head, and then but it's still.
That's a whole lore to itself.
But if you have, if you have an immortal soul, I mean, the idea is right, you can't die, but then maybe there's a different kind of death. Maybe the death instead, maybe a soul continues to exist, but now it's just existing in a different state. So I mean, it's really it's tough, and I think that kind of thing is sort of the heart of why so many cultures and religions cling on to this sort of like life after death, is because death is uncomfortable. And I think that points to the fact that spiritual death is something that's also uncomfortable. Um, and maybe that's why. Maybe death is needed so that we can understand that we don't want to die. We don't want this part of ourselves that's not limited by physical reality to die as well. Maybe it's to strive for that part of us that's not constrained by, the inevitable blowing up of the sun in billions of years.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, there's a spider with
Oh,
hanging down in front of me.
did you name him?
I don't know if you can see that.
No, I can't see it.
No, that's very small.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's okay.
All right. Sorry about that, guys.
All good.
That was a distraction. I'm sorry. So I mean, I guess that's what I mean, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ryan?
Well, I mean, I'll give my best shot. I'm gonna come at this slightly different angle. um, you know, so you said, you said here that you're okay with the fact that there's, oh, sorry about that. You're okay with the fact that there is death. You've accepted that, but you just don't know how you feel about the fact that in order to live, other things have to die. Like eating beef. In order to eat beef, a cow had to die for that. Things like that. Or in order to eat lettuce, a plant had to lose part of itself, maybe eventually die, for us to eat lettuce. And so maybe that's a little bit, you're not sure how to feel about that. So it's not completely settled into a situation where you feel like okay with it. So I'm going to come at a slightly different angle. So I know that you're a Christian. I want to just kind of go down a weird path with you. There was a YouTuber who goes by the name of the Cosmic Skeptic, I think. And he was asking I can't remember who it was he was speaking to. Anyways, he was speaking to a priest, I think, of some nature. Someone religious regardless. Actually, it might have been Trent Horn. Was not a priest, but he is religious. Anyways, Kyle knows who that is. So anyways, religious paths are always interesting for me. Perfect. Okay, so here's an interesting thing. The Cosmic Skeptic, one of his thoughts was, well, if God is perfect, then wouldn't he create a perfect world? And then, the answer to that is, well, couple things here. The world has things that are imperfect in it because there's evil, right? And so obviously he didn't create a perfect world, but it's still perfect for the end which it is designed, right? And so what is the end to which the world is designed? Sainthood. Or in other words, for the human person to unite himself with God in heaven, right? Him or herself. And to that end, obviously death is necessary. But also, beyond that, there's a whole different point I'm trying to make here. The cosmic skeptic replied to that with, yeah, but let's say you have this world that we're in, and you could change any one factor. And if any one factor you could change could make the world just a little bit better, wouldn't you choose it? If you were God and you were ultimately good and you wanted the good of your people, you wanted love to permeate through the world, wouldn't you make it just that little bit better? Wouldn't you make it that little bit better, just over and over and over, right? Until it is the best. And Trent Horn didn't really give a sufficient answer to this, but I think the answer to this is there's so many variances, but ultimately what we have is the best. The world in which we are given is what is required, or at least the best version of what gets us to where we want to be in the end, which is in the afterlife, right? Being holy, being saint-like, being full of love and incorporating ourselves into that spirit, right? And which is a weird thing because it's like, yeah, but there's so much trouble in the world. There's so many people, who might, be starving and they're hungry and they don't have anyone to feed them. There are animals who kill other animals just for sport. There are people who kill animals just for fun and they don't use the resources, right? There are evil people. There are evil animals. Like, there are just evils in the world. And it's like, okay, that's true. But perhaps all of those things are necessary, or at least can point us in the direction of coming to love, coming to become someone who is holy and godlike, if you will. And so it's an interesting way to look at the world and come at this question, because you say, like, well, I don't know how I feel about the whole part where we have to allow death for life to continue. Would it be better for life to just stop killing everything and then life ultimately decease? That way no one has to commit killing. And I think part of it is, sure, we could do that route. We have the ability to choose. The other animals don't, but we technically have the ability to choose. Here's the problem, though. Life is a good thing. Death isn't inherently a bad thing. It's just something that happens. It can be a bad thing, and like you said, murder is bad, right? But the world we live in is the world we live in. And whether we want the world to work the way it works or not isn't the question. Right? It's not the question we need to worry about. Whether the world works the way we think would be best or not. First of all, we don't have the intelligence to know what would be best. Right? We just don't. We don't even understand ourselves completely. How would we design a world that would be better than this? You might be able to think, oh, I could think of one. There's not pain. Well, okay, immediately you have problems. Pain is really important. It's like super important. And there's a beauty in pain that you would not have in this world without it. There's so many things. You could be like, well, I could imagine, yeah, pain is super important. Thanks, Astro. It's like, well, I can imagine another one. There's no suffering. Well, that pain is suffering. Like, that's the same thing. Like, no suffering is not a better world. How about no death? Okay, sure, you're going to have to start from scratch on that one. There's a lot of things you need to change. But, okay, there's no death. Well, then how are you ever going to get to heaven, first of all? Second of all, like, I don't know, there's just a bunch of issues with that. And here's the thing, it doesn't necessarily create a better human in the end. All it does is it changes the conditions and makes them more comfortable for you. But more comfortable you doesn't make a better you. right? So asking how you can make the world better, or whether you're okay or not with the way that the world functions, the way that physics works or whatever, isn't probably the question you should be asking. The question is, how do you utilize what's in the world to make a better you? How do you look at the world and recognize what is and allow that to shape you into the you that reaches heaven, or the you that is holy, or the you that is the best you, however you want to say it, right? The you that is the most loving, the you that is the most good within the spectrum of the world that you're allowed to be good. You know, the amount of good that you're allowed to bring into the world, you're able to do that. You know, what can you do? Because the honest truth is we can't change the way the world works. And so we have to come to just accept it and say, this is the way the world works. How do we use that to our advantage? How do we use that not to not an advantage in a way where you're like, I'm going to conquer and own things and whatever, be greedy, whatever. Not necessarily that, but more so, how do we use that to our advantage in creating the human within ourselves that we are proud of? Right? And so that's all I'm going to answer your question with. And hopefully that sort of makes you a little bit more okay with the fact that it's there. Because I can tell you, if we somehow could all take a pill and it gets rid of death, we would not be happy about that in the long run. We would be mad at ourselves. I'm sure of it. We would be like, wish I hadn't taken that pill. At some point. So anyways, that's what I got. I'm gonna give it back over to you, Kyle, if you got anything you want to add.
No, I don't really. I think we're good.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's a good way to cover it. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's the best I got, and I guess that's the best we got. It's kind of an interesting question. It's more philosophical. But you did say, you had a little bit of, there's some struggle in there, and so I'm glad that we got to, talk it over. I don't know if it's convincing, but at least hopefully it moves your brain down a line that can help you solve it. Because you know what? There are things in this world we are never going to be okay with. It's just the fact, right? Like, get rid of mosquitoes. That would be great. But
That'd
here's
be
the
fantastic.
thing. We are here. And they are there. And so what should we be focused on creating a world without them, or should we be focused on managing our lives with them? And yeah, there's some amount of protection we need to do. Like, for example, they've killed a lot of the mosquito problems that created disease in Africa. And that's great. That's fantastic. And in fact, that good that people did to eliminate diseases in Africa was out of love and goodness of their heart that wouldn't have ever come about if there weren't mosquitoes in the first place. So thank God for mosquitoes for creating a problem for people to exhibit and showcase their love and grow in love and be inspired by other people's love, all because there was this evil in the world called the mosquito. So if you will, it's okay to go down that track and recognize it's okay that there are bad things that we don't like, because to some degree it might bring about the nature in us that is love, that nature in us that desires something better and acts it out into the world. So I'm gonna end with that.
Yeah, and as a Christian, just one thing to add, just real quick. I mean, without death, right? You don't get a savior.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because there's nothing to be saved from.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Good point. All right. Yeah, I mean that's a really good point. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Sawale, for the question. I think is a meaningful and thoughtful question. I'm glad you wrote it for us to read, even if you were a little bit worried about it. I'm glad that you did. So thank you so much. It's a great topic. And yeah, hopefully it was satisfactory. Without mosquitoes, several species of birds and fish would die. Additionally, several species of mosquitoes act as pollinators for swamp plants, which bees won't pollinate. Oh, well, thanks, Gray. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay. Frisk, are you still? Yeah, Frisk, are you with us? Would you like us to cover your topic? I see you got one in here. Um, we've tied it. Wait. Actually, hold on. Yeah, we've. It's titled "Self-Found Happiness." I'm cool. You would like us to do it? Fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this topic up as well on the thing for us. Kyle, did you want to read this like the last one?
If you want, hold on, I'm reading this one real quick. Okay. Yeah, which one are we doing? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem. This is Sister Frisk. Sorry, Sister Frisk. Wow, I can't talk today. AKA Queen Tinkletoes. Entitled "Self-Found Happiness."
Yes, I can do that.
Wonderful.
How do we make ourselves happy without relying on other people? My counselor said I get my happiness from other people, and that I need to focus on myself to be happy. But I'm not sure how to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, this is a really great topic, and I think this is a relevant topic, not just to you, but a large majority of our world, especially in our current times, but even in past times. I think this has been an issue in much of mankind's history. It's a really great question, so I thank you so much, Sister Frisk, for asking it, and I think it's something that we all probably have had to go through at some point in our life. To some degree or another. And so don't feel like you're a don't feel like this problem is one of those problems where it's like, well, I'm one of the few people that have it, so luckily no one knows, or unlikely anyone knows how to solve it, because you're in good company. This is a very good question because it has a lot of answers. It might not be one answer, but there are a lot of different ways to answer it. And it's worth answering for you and for other people here with us today. Yeah, and as Astral said, I think most people are still figuring this one out. Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much, Sister Frisk. This is, again, you're not just helping yourself, but helping everybody else too, or at least most people. With this kind of question. So you're not alone here, and we really appreciate you for this topic. We thank you for having the honor, or sorry, the humility to bring it up, even though this is something that's kind of private between you and your therapist. You chose to share it with us, so we appreciate that you would. We're honored that you would even include us in such an ordeal. So thank you so much. I'm going to give it over to Kyle if he's ready.
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool.
Yeah, the first thing I'm going to say is, we're not professionals and we don't really know everything that's going on. So if I say anything at all that contradicts what your therapist is recommending, ignore me, because I just, I don't have enough information. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
whatever
Well
I
said.
say, if it's contradictory, then ignore what I'm saying. Just gonna throw that out because there's so many variables in these personal situations that, and the way your psychology works that,
Yeah,
so whatever we say today, definitely continue with your therapist.
absolutely.
And so, okay, so reading through the question, trying to interpret exactly what's happening, and from what I can see, and what most people go through, from my experience, is a situation where they get their happiness based on how they perceive other people perceive them. Let me see if I can phrase that easier. I'll just use myself as an example. Maybe that'll be easier. I If I had this problem, it would be like I would only feel happy if I feel like Ryan is happy with me. I'm going to get my happiness from other people liking me or Ryan liking me. You know, I think that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of where the way I understand um, relying on other people for happiness. Or alternatively, I'm waiting for Ryan to do something to make me happy. So there are the two ways that I see that go. I don't
Here's
know how to be happy
one third
unless,
way.
okay, is there, okay.
I'm sorry. Well, sorry. There's
Yeah, good.
3 and or 4 ways to view this that I see. So I
Okay.
don't know, sister. You might be able to help us out here, in sort of figuring it out. If that's okay for me to ask. Obviously, you don't have to disclose anything. But just you gave 2, right? Yours was um, you other people's opinions determine your own happiness.
Yep.
Second one was other people's actions determine my happiness. Right?
Yes.
Another one might be other people's emotions in the room, right? Determine
Mm-hmm.
how I
Yes.
feel in the room.
Yep.
And then the last one might be me making other people happy is how I'm happy. I'm a people
Yes.
pleaser, right? So it's my actions of making other
I
people that
think
makes me
that's,
happy.
yes, that's very tied into all of the
I think
above.
so, yeah. And so that's why it's
Yeah.
like the fourth one is a little bit iffy. That's
Yeah.
why I
Yeah.
said
Yeah.
3 kind of
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. 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 So, um,
anyway, sorry.
and so, but yeah, no, that's great. All these have a different sort of, yeah, different sort of thing going on with them. And I would say, first of all, I don't think any of those are necessarily bad in of them in and of themselves. Like we should notice these things because that's how we know how to respond to an environment, right? If we go into a room and we see people are unhappy, it's good to have that empathy and say, okay, I can, the room is unhappy. I can feel a little bit unhappy so I can understand why, what's going on with everybody. And then from there, but the, so it's a useful tool in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Or another scenario, you know, these are all useful tools. If somebody is only happy when other people are making them happy by doing good things for them, you know, it's sort of like a person who's always like in a take relationship, you know, where they just want people to give stuff to them all the time. And that's how they're happy. It's a useful tool because it allows you to accept gifts in a very good, healthy way. Like if that makes sense. Like if somebody wants to give you something, you can accept it and you can be happy about receiving stuff. That's a useful tool for social, you know, interaction. I mean, you don't want to always, but with all these, and I can go through the other ones. And I don't think I need to. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
with all these are very useful tools. The problem isn't necessarily that it exists. It's almost how much we let it take over instead of using it as a tool for information and for knowing how to act and respond. Right now, it's the response towards the stimulus that's sort of like the the problem, right? Like we have to take in this information from our environment, and we should internalize it. Because if we don't internalize the information, then we're not really living. I don't think. I think we're just sort of floating around and not recognizing the things around us. So I mean, we should be discovering them. However, you know, so but how do you get out of the habit of okay, if so and so is upset with me, I must be a bad person, and so I'm going to just be uh upset down on myself, right, all the time. I'm going to totally let that person, what they think about me, control how I feel about me. How do we get out of that? Or on the other, like, or if the room is really negative and everybody I talk to is negative, how do I not be negative? I think that one's pretty like these are very hard questions because if I really care about a person and they are not happy with me, it's going to be very hard for me to just dismiss. Like if I don't know some random person on a sidewalk and they are upset with me because I don't know I stepped on a crack or something, like that's pretty easy to just whatever you're just insane. Like I don't really have to care, you know. But if it's a good friend and they're not happy, like obviously that's going to affect us. So, um, or if you are somebody who needs constant, affirmation, um, how does this go? How does this and how does this go? How do you correct these things that are going too far? And I think all of them have a little bit different answer. And I think what your therapist is saying is focus on yourself a little bit. Um, it's probably, I would assume, is in a way trying to help you to understand who you are, right? So that these little bits of information from the environment don't define you. You're able to then take that information and use it who you are to act on that information, right? You act on the stimulus. You don't let the stimulus force your action, right? I think that's, and I think that might be kind of where so how do you, so then the question becomes, how do you focus on it? How do you learn who you are to the point where all these things don't have to bother you or manipulate you into being somebody that you're not, right? Because we are not inherently depressed people. We are not bad people. I mean, some people are, but just because other people are angry with us doesn't mean we're bad, or just because this, like these are all external things, right? So how do we know who we are? And I think if I understand correctly, that's the question that needs to be answered, right? Is who are you and how do you hold on to that even when external stimulus might be trying to tell you something else? When in reality it's just telling you how other people are, right? One of the things is you don't get to control how other people act. And so if they're going to act weird, that doesn't mean that you're weird. That means that they're weird. So how do you separate that out? Because, when you're very an empathic person, right, it's really easy to take all these things into yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you discern what's me and what people are pushing into me, right? Or what is the environment trying to teach me, not what does this environment mean that I am, right? There's two different things. And so, yeah. So how do you define yourself? Are you defined by what you like to eat? Are you defined by, it's kind of silly, right? I mean, like,
Yeah, well, that's why that's why I'm the best. Yeah.
right, yeah.
Because I have the best taste. No.
Are you defined by what you smell like? Are you defined by
Sort of.
your favorite scent? Are you defined by, I mean, these are funny questions, but the reality is people define themselves by these things. It sounds silly, but if you listen, you will hear people have very passionate conversations about bacon.
Oh yeah.
Almost to the point where it's like they're personally insulted if you don't like bacon.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds silly, right? Because it's just food, whatever. But like some people are that much into it, or like, um, where if you don't like something that they like, oh, that's an insult. And bacon's a silly example, but it's not just bacon. I'm sure you can come up with examples of people that it's just a preference. But for whatever reason, like if you don't agree with the preference, it's like you're the enemy. They hate you, right? Like it's crazy. But they've defined themselves. It's not that the people are crazy, but the reactions, right? Like we should never like just get so mad at somebody because they have a disagreement of opinion, but on something like preference. But it happens, and it's because people have defined themselves by these like arbitrary, like, no, but that's not who you are. Like you're not just I like bacon. Like what is that? That's not a personality.
Who are you? I like bacon.
I like bacon.
Oh my gosh.
But people make a personality out of anything, and that's one thing that, you have a unique trait or whatever, you make a personality, but the reality is that's just part of it. It's one facet of your personality. So how do like, kind of have to look at the whole thing? Like, okay, so yes, I like bacon, but that's not all of me. That's just this one little piece. What else am I? Who am I? Where did I come from? Why am I here? What am I doing with my life? What These kinds of questions all come together. Who am I? Who am I living my life for? You know, what is all these? There's so many questions to ask to determine who you are. But I think these are the kinds of questions that, if you focus on and you kind of learn to understand, then when somebody comes up and just freaks out at you for something that really most of the time is a misunderstanding, not a real, most people aren't malevolent, right? It's not like most people are out here trying to be mean. It's just usually a misunderstanding. And so, but some people freak out because they've been offended, right? Well, when, it's like, and if that person causes you to feel bad, like that's a good initial reaction, right? Because you should, for having offended somebody, be a little bit, you know, apologetic about that. But then to internalize it and make that part of you isn't necessarily good, right? But how do you combat that? Well, you say, well, no, who am I? I'm not a mean person. I didn't do that on purpose. So I don't need to internalize that. I am a person who loves other people. I'm a person that lives to make other people better or have a better life. I have, me personally, I have a family. I have, kids and wife, and and trying to be the best dad and husband that I can be in a lot of ways. But then also, I've got friends and I try to be there for them, and just all these different things. And these are some of the things I do. But then also, what, I do like bacon, but it's not my favorite food. I don't like some foods also, like mushrooms. Like mushrooms are gross. Okay. And sometimes I get in arguments with people about how gross mushrooms are, but really it's all just for fun. Um,
It gets passionate about that sometimes, but
yeah.
it's a fun kind of
Yeah, but
passion.
it's all in good fun. But
Yeah.
some people are more, but how do you know, like, okay, yeah, that's fun, and it's weird, and it's a little, I've always gotten in arguments with, like, for whatever reason, I've just been in argumentative. Like, I have fun when I'm having arguments sometimes. Not all arguments, some of them it's not fun. Um, but some of them are. And so, it is, just a weird thing. But just because I'm in an argument with somebody doesn't mean I don't like them or that I'm mad at them. It's just there's information being exchanged maybe at a passionate level, right? And that's okay. But that doesn't influence whether or not I'm having a good day unless it got really out of hand, and then it's because I let it get out of hand. It's not because I don't like this person or they don't like me. It's because I know that I went too far, right? But that's okay because I recognize that, and then I can apologize for that very specific thing. And hopefully, I can get some forgiveness and we have reconciliation and then we move forward. Um, you know, um, but on the other hand, like, if I'm having trouble being happy because I need people to do things for me all the time, why do I need them to tell me who I am, right? It's the same answer. If I know who I am and what I'm doing in the world and where I sit, I don't need other people to tell me that, right? Because I can know. And not that I know exactly. I don't think anybody knows this exactly or perfectly. We're all learning and adapting and trying to figure this out. Nobody has this thing. But it's just having a base level, I think, is what helps sort of allows you to be grounded instead of being so totally influenced by other people. And, how do you make yourself happy? I don't know what that means for you. I mean, some people that's self-indulgence, but I think that only lasts for a very small amount of time. Going to have ice cream or chocolate or a vacation or you know, gambling, video games, whatever. Like people have different things they like to do, but that's all very temporary. I mean, long-term happiness comes from giving yourself pretty much in every case. But you can't give something that you don't have if you don't know who you are, right? How do you give yourself away? Because you're just doing stuff. It's not you doing it, it's you just doing stuff. And so yeah, I think that's kind of the answer, or how I would say is get to know who you are. And it's not one thing, it's not seven things, it's probably a million things that defines who you are and your personality. And it's, what are the good parts of it? And know what they are. And don't let anybody convince you, if you know you've got this good trait, don't let anybody convince you you don't have it. Some people, are just so caught up in themselves, and this is most people, that they don't know who you are either. So, I mean, you can't let somebody else decide who you are for you, if that makes sense. They don't know, just like you don't know. But if you can figure it out at least a little bit, then anytime something happens to you and you're like sad and you don't know why, or you're not happy with the way things are going, you can look at, okay, but look at me. Is this going poorly because of me, or is this going poorly because that's just what's happening? This is just external things happening. It doesn't have to affect me, right? In this way, I can still move through this situation, and it's still me moving through it. It's not somebody else moving through it, it's me, and who am I doing that? So then the situation doesn't have to be pushing me around. I'm just moving through it. So I'm talking about happiness. Same kind of thing. People can experience joy even in the most dire circumstances because they know that the circumstances are circumstances, but they are still a good person and they're doing their best, right? And I think that's kind of the key. So yeah. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that all that was a very good points, and that makes a lot of sense. Frisk added right at the end here, said,
yeah, right. I see that. Yeah.
I like to make other people happy. Sorry, I like to make other people happy to make myself happy. But then I have a crisis when I can't do that, which is kind of along the lines of what I added as the fourth option, which is kind of, it is somewhat reliant upon one of the other ones before, if not all of them, to some degree, in different ways. But, there's something we used to say, or I used to say on Don't Worry Wednesday a long while back. I haven't said it in a while. I don't know if you've been here when I was saying it. But it's common for people to be in a situation where they rely on others for happiness. And you have to come out and say, like, look, other people, first of all, other people aren't thinking about you to try to make you happy all the time, right? Of course. And you know that, and obviously that's not your problem. But second of all, even if they were, it's not their responsibility to make you happy, right? It's not their responsibility. If you put your happiness in the hands of other people, you are doing a disservice to them and yourself, right? Yeah, because you're doing a disservice to yourself, right? Because it's like, you don't want other people controlling your happiness. That's not, they can't choose that for you, and you're giving it to them, which is a disservice to them because now you're like, you have to make me happy. And it's like, how am I going to do that? I don't have a clue how that works. I can't even make myself happy. Most people, right? How am I supposed to make you happy? Like, that's not it's not in my repertoire of talents to make you happy. So it's not fair to put that on other people. And I know you know this, right? I know you know this is why you brought it up. But one of the things is recognizing that that's the truth helps. It takes you a long way because it makes you recognize that when you are unhappy, stop looking at other people, right? Stop looking at whether your actions made them happy, because that part doesn't matter. Okay, I say it doesn't matter, and I mean that, but don't take me in the wrong way. It's very good to help other people. But And having a desire to help other people is very good, right? It's sort of like a accidental good, if you will. I'm gonna try to describe this, and I don't mean to make you out as a bad person, because you're a good person, sister. Risk. But I want you, so don't take me the wrong way. But I want you to understand there's a set of valuable intentions. There's a set of valuable intentions that you have to have in your heart to not get caught up in the evil that accidental goods can create. Okay, and so I'm going to explain this in a. You'll understand what I mean in a second. I'm sure if you haven't already figured it out. Okay. Let's say, just by my nature, I'm drawn to doing good things for other people because it makes me happy to see that I did something that made them happy, right? That's where you're at, right? If I do that, then what it causes in here is it increases my desire to do good, but only for the sake of myself and my own happiness. I will continue to do good things for other people because I recognize that it's a good thing. But my ultimate goal in doing good things for other people is how I feel inside. And how I feel when I see other people are smiling and happy, right? So even though it's good to do good things for other people, what I've created inside of me is a terror. What I've created inside of me is someone who's greedy for other people to make me happy when I see them happy by my own deeds. You go, someone smiling? I did that. I did that. And that makes me proud of myself. And because I know I made them happy, and now I'm proud of myself, right, for doing that, it just urges me on to do it again and again and again and again and again out of the desire for my own gain, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting for self. There's nothing wrong about wanting happiness. There's nothing wrong with helping others. There's nothing wrong with this necessarily. The wrong comes from this one point, this one key point, and it's why. Why do you do good things for other people? If the sole reason you do good things for other people is out of this habit of ultimate self-joy, of being proud of yourself, right? If that's why you do it, then you're going to create something bad within you. Because now what you're actually doing unintentionally, and it doesn't look like this to anybody, but this is what ultimately it is. What you're ultimately doing is you're using people. You're using people's emotions to make you happy. You're using people's reactions to make you happy. You're using them to an end. You're doing good things for other people, but your end is for your own joy, right? Your end isn't for them. It's a whole different thing when your intention to do good things for other people is simply to do good things for another person so that they can be happy and let it go. It's a whole different experience than doing something for someone, paying attention to how they receive it, waiting for that smile, and then feeling good. It's completely different. Completely different. And so I think again, not a therapist, not your therapist, and definitely worth looking into and talking to them about this. But and this comes from personal experiences, by the way. This is my own personal experiences, so that's why I can relate them to you, and they might not be right for you. But and I can see you responding pretty positively in the chat. But what you need to do is take your focus, and what you need to do. Okay, what I want you to try to do, again, talk to your therapist about this. What I want you to try to do is do something for someone in a way that they would never know it was you. And do not look for their reaction. Do not look to see if they were happy. For example, I mean, easy enough possibility. Let's say you live in a home with a bunch of people, and one night you sneak out of your bedroom and you do the dishes. And then you sneak back to your bed, right? Maybe that's not good in your household, but just something like that, right? Someone wakes up in the morning, they're like, someone did the dishes. Who did the dishes, right? You know, whoever did the dishes, thank you. You know, they might say that, or they might just go, whatever. And they're just glad they don't have to do them. They might not even say anything, right? They're just happy they don't have to do them. They wouldn't even, might not even recognize that they didn't. They might have thought that, oh, I must have done them last night. I must have done those last night. I totally just forgot that I did them. I thought I had to wake up and do dishes, but I guess I did them last night. All right, cool. It doesn't matter how they feel about it. The point is that when you strive to do good for others and you don't make how they feel a tool for your own happiness, what you find is you find yourself being very joyful. Because it's a weird thing, but you become a lot more proud of yourself for doing good things when you do them for the sole reason of doing good things for others. It's a proudness that stands its test of time. But if you do things that are good for other people, but you're proud of the fact that it made them happy, which is a very subtle difference. But notice it's a very big difference. One, you're doing it for them, and the other one, you're doing it ultimately for yourself. If you're proud of making other people happy, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but that's not a proudness that lasts. Why? Because you have to keep on chasing that. You will have to chase that until the day you die, because there's always more people to make happy. And they're not always happy, right? They're not happy forever just because you did that one thing, right? They're happy for a time. It's like, oh, that felt good. That felt good inside. They smiled. That felt good inside. I'm going to do it again so I can feel good inside again, right? It's just going to be this constant chase. Now, the other road, you make people happy for the sake of their happiness, or you can't really control that, but if you do good things for other people for the sake of their good, I'll say it that way instead. It's a completely different algorithm. It's completely different. One, you're not necessarily worried about their happiness, but generally good things bring about happiness, but regardless, you're doing good things for the sake of other people's good. That's love, right? You don't feel like you have to chase it because it's one and done and it's over with. You don't have to follow them. You don't have to keep tabs on them to find out if they're happy with you or with what you've done. You don't have to have them recognize that you're the one who did it. You can just let it go. And you're proud of yourself for doing that. And that's a type of proudness that doesn't leave you, because you can always reflect back on that moment and go, I did that for all the right reasons. And that happiness, for some reason, it just lasts longer. You feel it. The wave is calm. It's a peaceful calm. And it just goes. Instead of this burst of like joy that just caves in real hard and sometimes causes depression, it's like this peaceful joy that just slowly mulls on over, and you're just like, okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. And that's like one of the best things you can say about yourself. It's like, I'm good. Like I am good. Like I'm not like I'm feeling good, but like no, I'm good. Like I'm a good person. I am good. Both, actually. I'm doing good and I feel good and I'm a good person. Because I do good things for the sake of others, purely out of that. Is it wrong to feel satisfied when someone smiles because you do something good for them? Absolutely not. In fact, it's a blessing to have that. And what I mean is it's a blessing to desire that, because it leads you down the road of doing good. But it's sort of a selfish reason for doing good. And so if you can reshape your mind to start doing the good for their good rather than doing the good for your own joy. I think maybe it will lead you down the right road and lead you down a path where you're no longer relying on other people to make you happy. Because then your happiness comes from yourself, what you are capable of giving, right? When you give happy, that's what they say. When you give happy, you feel happy, right? It doesn't mean when you give happy, you see how other people respond with happiness and that makes you feel happy. No, it's actually when you give yourself fully into something, you have made yourself valuable in that moment, valuable to that moment. You're always valuable, but you have made your actions valuable. And your brain recognizes that, and your soul recognizes that, and in that, you find happiness. Your reward is already there. You don't have to rely on other people or or perceive people or anything. You don't have to look for that feedback. You don't have to look for a reward. The reward is already there. It's inherent in the action of giving yourself. When you give yourself, when you give your talents, when you give your time, when you give yourself to another person, the reward is already there in the act of giving because you are exhibiting love into the world. And when you give love into the world, it just increases your love, which is a weird thing, but that's the best way it works. And so love others ultimately is the end here. You don't have to, well, I've said it enough. You don't have to look to other people, right? You don't have to give so as to look for a reward and receive. You don't give people stuff, like you don't give your love to someone because you want them to give you something back. And you might say, like, well, I wasn't looking for them to give me something back. But you kind of were on accident. Right? It's like you weren't the kind of person who's like, hey, remember that time I gave you $20 out of the kindness of my heart and I never asked for it back? How come you never did anything for me? Like, you jerk. Like, obviously you're not being that kind of person, right? There are people out there like that. They'll keep tabs on you and they will figure out all the times that they've done something good for you, but they won't keep track of the times you did something good for them. And it's like, there are people out there like that. I'm not lumping you in with them at all. But in a very small way, what you're doing is you're giving them something and you're looking for that reward back, right? You're giving them love and you're still looking for a reward, even though it's supposed to be love, which means a gift of self, selfless, not self-seeking, right? Self-giving, not self-seeking, right? That's what love is. So I just urge you to try to follow that road. And the best way to do that is take action. And that will reprogram your mind. You take action. What does that action look like? Doing things for others and making a conscious effort not to look for the reward. And pay no mind to the reward. Say, I don't want that reward. I don't want to see their smiling faces until I get this straight in here, where I can allow smiling faces and not get caught up in it. Because someday you will be able to see the reward and not be tempted by it, not be changed by it, and enticed by it. You will see the reward of their smiling faces and you'll go, good for them. Good for them. Like, just not like in a sassy way, good for them, but like, no, that's good. I'm happy for them. And I'm not going to take the credit of their happiness. Right? Obviously, yeah, sure, it's your fault. And you have some credit owed to you, but that's not what matters. That's not the reason you did it. The reason you did it is because you love them and you wanted something good for them. Completely and entirely, and nothing else. Obviously, you want that already. I know you do, but I mean just completely and nothing else, right? Because you want that and just a little bit more, which is fine. I get it. All of us have been there. All of us probably are there. So keep it up. That's my best recommendation, Sister Frisk, and I hope that it's helpful. And again, talk to your therapist about this. Maybe it'll make some headway. Maybe it won't. But that's what I've got. Kyle, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
It's kind of a sidebar thing, but sometimes what people need and what you do for them isn't going to make them happy because what In fact, sometimes something that would make somebody happy is the exact opposite of what they need. You know, for example, somebody with a gambling addiction and they've run out of money, if you give them money to keep gambling, they're going to be extremely happy with you. Okay, but that's just going to further their addiction and make their life worse. Because now they're going to feel bad for having used your money and wasted it, you know, because they know what they're, a lot of times they know what they're doing is wasting money, you know, and they've only conditioned their brains to now seek money from other people that they don't deserve to get money from. So then they could form a bad habit now of seeking money from friends and trying to borrow more. And so that would be some examples. I mean, not that you've done something like that, but it really doesn't have anything to do with you at all. I'm just saying this is just you know, a interesting thing. You know, you can love people and do good things for them that don't make them happy in the moment. And that's another way that, you know, like if you've done the right thing, you can still be joyful and that you know you've done the right thing, even though it might have been stressful and it might have been, you know, kind of hard to maybe not do that for them. But if you know it was wrong for them, then, you know, then you can still be happy, even though they're not going to be.
That's a great
Someday
point.
they will thank you if they can come out of their delusion, I guess, for lack of a better term. I shouldn't say delusion. It's, although it sort of means the same. Their unknowingness of their situation, I guess. They don't appreciate it because they don't know that it's good for them yet, and that's okay. So, you know, I guess it'd be another possible way forward too. Is just do good things for people that, I mean, that's stressful though, but like do things that they're not going to realize are necessarily good, so that you know that you've done something good. You know you're not going to receive something in return. You know, like Ryan was saying earlier, to, you know, so don't get caught up in that sort of um, recognition, seeking recognition. You know, but you still, you know, you've done something good and you can feel good about that. So yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, and it's normal and it's good. You know, it's somebody's birthday and you get them a present, you know, yeah. You know,
Yeah,
hey,
you don't have to turn around and look
it's
away. That's not the
yeah,
point.
yeah. No, it's a birthday. Everybody's supposed to have fun with that reaction. That's normal. That's fine. You know, you don't need to eliminate that entirely. Like it's a good, and again, it's a good, but
Yeah.
it's just knowing when it turns into
An
an
addiction?
ego
Yeah,
type.
ego.
Yeah, like an ego, sort of like fulfilling your own ego kind of thing, versus just like, no, this is a fun experience we're all having, and it's what we're expecting from this. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good way to put it. Yeah, and just to recognize that difference is like, to me, it's like you have this thin line, and it's, I mean, you're already a good person, and the line is kind of thin in the first place. But if you can get your reason for why you give things to people, why you do good things, right, then it solves everything. And again, sorry for taking so long to say it, but yeah, and I agree with you, your point, Kyle. Like that's so true. There are certain things that are good for people that are gonna make you unhappy with you, but at some point, they're gonna be happy in the long run because they
yeah.
recognize the good that you've done. Yeah, and you've set them up for good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, you just don't want to depend on it. You don't want it to make it your what you decide. What you think about yourself is based on that. You don't want that, right? So, yeah. Anyways, it's a great topic, Sister Frisk. Thank you for asking it. Thank you for allowing us to speak on it, and I hope you the best in your future with this topic and this struggle. And I'm really happy that you are going through going through it with your therapist, and I hope you guys find some great answers
Yeah.
and make great headway with it. Because I mean, this is a tricky thing, but it's a very common thing, and I think no one. We're all going through this life, and we all just stumble through it, and we're just like, okay, here I am. I have this now, where I apparently rely on other people's reactions to my actions to decide if I'm happy or not. How did I get here? It's like, I don't know. You just did, and it's like, that's okay. I don't know. Let's just try to walk out of it, I guess, somehow. and it's not always easy to just walk out. It's a time. So yeah. So thank you for letting us be a part of your life in that journey forward. Yeah. So yeah, thank you. I mean, we've got about 10, 11 minutes left on the clock. I don't think we have any of these that are necessarily short enough to give you the like valuable time, unless Kyle's willing to go over for up to a half hour.
I give you my general. I'll give you my general solution to any problem. Okay, if you got a problem, stop it.
Stop it. All right. So here you guys go. To all the rest of these, I'm just gonna answer all. I'm just gonna mark all the rest of these answered.
Just stop it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna mark all of these answered. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, all 11 of these problems, you guys are free to go. All 11 of them have been answered and done away with. Just stop it. Stop the problem.
Yep.
All right.
Knock it off.
Every topic done. All right. For topic stream, I honestly almost did it. Wait, how many topics did we have? We had 3. Yeah. Almost 4. We did. I think we might have done possibly 4 last stream. Maybe. I'm not sure. Either 3 or 4. Don't know how it went. One of you can remind us. But anyhow, if it's all right with you guys, we'll close it a little bit early this time. We've done more than our fair share of going over, so I'll give Kyle a break, and I give myself
whatever you want.
So, and we'll go ahead and end it here. And I'll also give you guys a break. You guys can, if you want to spend the next 10 minutes outside of Don't Worry Wednesday, but you're like, I didn't get my fill, you know. It's like the last 10 minutes really mess with me. I was like, well, then why don't you just go ahead and just do a little bit of pacing in your room, some meditation, and thinking about contemplating stuff and looking through your problems, writing them down in your journal or something. I don't know. Self-reflect, and that's what I got for you.
Hang out in the chat for a while.
Yeah, hang out in the chat for a while until it closes you out. Yeah. Yep. Also, thank you, Saleh, for saying that. Yeah, anyone who has a topic and wants to submit one for us to cover soon, please submit one to don'tworrywednesday.com. Otherwise, keep coming back. We really appreciate seeing you all, and all of your comments are lovely and helpful, and you're all wonderful people. We love you, and we're just happy you're here with us. So, yeah, thank you. Anything else to add?
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
I'll see you next year. Next baseball season. Next
baseball season, Kyle reappear. That's right. That's how it goes. It's only during baseball season. That's right. That's funny. All right. Well, thank you guys. Have a wonderful rest of your evening / morning, day, whatever you guys are doing these days, kids. Oh my gosh. No, time zones really. And yeah. Bye-bye. Love you all. Peace.
See you later.
And